Howdy do everyone. You know who I am, your chief slop operator, ETTemplar, Supreme Misfit Professional Dipshit. We're reacting to one of these black Israelite types, and we're going to deconstruct this guy's entire fucking argument from meat to bone, ass to stern, and let's just get right into it. Let's see what this guy has to say.
To my white people, I be seeing your little comments and stuff like that, saying like, "Who is we?" I wasn't a slave owner, and all of this and all of that and all that bull crap. I ain't trying to hear that. It doesn't matter if you was not a slave owner. You still benefited from your ancestors doing this stuff.
Your ancestors doing this stuff. So the sin's the father. And more importantly, you got this wrong, okay? Yeah, a small majority of white people in the South own slaves. And no one's coming out here applauding that. In fact, most Southerners didn't even want to own slaves. But regardless, there was a whole lot of Yankees who fought, and Federals, who fought to free the slaves. And there was abolitionists who were stark zealot fanatics who murdered people. You're familiar with John Brown, right? Or do you not just look at all history? You get your history from the fucking black Israelites, which is pure shit, by the way, and you just dump it right into your fucking skull. But not to assume anything about your character or levels of intelligence, but chances are you haven't ever cracked open a fucking history book and looked or read shit. A lot of, there's what, 600,000 people who died in the Civil War? You can look it up on both sides. So I think the blood of our fallen, of my family in the Civil War, absolved us of that particular sin. But these people, much like other horseshit, fucking racial identity extremist groups, it gives them, since they're always a fucking victim. You see this with Israelis, right? And Jewish slants, right? Where they were victims once, so they can't do no wrong, and the world deserves them everything, and nothing's ever their fucking fault. It's the same folly that is with the black supremacists and the white supremacy. If it's one thing, the thin line that connects the two is them excusing themselves for their one, shitty behavior, and two, having to feel as if they're superior to everyone because they were victims once. But earth to this guy, everyone's been victims and slaves at some point. Also, my family were Scots and Irish. We kind of got the shit end of the stick, but you see me coming out here saying, oh, fuck the English, and the English owe me reparations? No, because sins of the father don't carry on down the lineage. But anyways,
all that family business, all that land that y'all have, all of that came from that. So
bullshit. So again, this is an African American man somehow knowing our family history and essentially applying a one single coat to everyone, which is fucking racism, by the way. Oh, excuse me. You can't be racist against white people. Is that it? Is that the cultural Marxist horseshit angle you're going with? It probably is. And it's the same black Israelite bullshit and racial supremacy bullshit that everyone else uses.
Like it doesn't really matter. Y'all are not doing anything to fix the subject.
Hey, speaking of slavery, you know that a disproportionate number of African Americans, your people, are being enslaved by Arabs and Muslims every day. Are you going to do anything about that? No, because you don't want to take on the Islamists, and because you don't want to take on Islam, huh? Oh no, it's only the white people you think can get away with this shit. I don't see any of you guys doing abolition work or humanitarian aid work for African slaves in Africa being controlled and still sold by Islamists and Muslims. Right. Okay, of course, that means you'd have to actually do something and put your life and resources on the line for your people. And of course, see, that requires work. And why do that? Why have any content of character or moral umbrage to actually fucking do anything about it when you can just say, give me fucking money because I was a victim once?
All y'all trying to do is point fingers at your ancestors.
and your ancestors. Hey, here's a fun little story. Your ancestors, buddy, traded your people, Africans. There was African kings that traded your people to Dutch Jewish people who then sold it to the Americas. So are you going to ask reparations from the Dutch and the Jews? And are you going to go back to Africa and get reparations from them as well? Or is this only a racially targeted, motivated thing? It probably is, isn't it? Because, of course, again, not to make assumptions about your character level, intellect, and education, but something tells me you haven't quite followed or read any fucking history about global slavery. And I think England was the earliest nation to abolish slavery in like 16s with William Wilberforce is the dude's name. And so don't come at us with all white people shit. Just like how I'm not going to come at you with, you know what? We're on YouTube and we're not going to do that. We're not going to cast aspersions or do the same thing you're doing.
No. You need to be like, what can I do to fix what my ancestors has broken?
Again, so prove me the papers that my ancestors traded slaves. Bet you can't, because my ancestors weren't involved with that shit. So again, this is sins of the father bullshit, where again we tie back to the beginning of this video, where both racial separatist groups will take their victimhood status or things in their past, and same thing with Israelis and Jews. Well, they'll take this victimhood status and they allow, and with that status, they give themselves a special amulet and shield of victimhood that, again, negates them for their bad behavior because they were victims once, and it also gives them a form of supremacy to bludgeon other races and ethnicities to serve their own purpose.
Instead of trying to say, no, I didn't do it, that wasn't me, but it was your family.
And your people as well traded your own slave people. So also African Americans engaged in the slave trade. Then again, you know that if you actually cracked open a book and read some fucking history. Anyways. Traded your people for whiskey, cannons, and muskets, actually.
So I'm not really trying to hear this and that. I'm not trying to hear that.
Because you're an ignorant retard. You can't consider anyone's history, look into history, read a goddamn book, or even consider the angle of someone else's opinion. Could you? No, of course not, because then that would also allow you to have an introspective look against your own people who traded your people to Dutch and Jews, who then traded it to white Americans in America. But you don't want to confront that, because then you'll discover that your people, Africans, were also engaged in the slave trade, and you don't exactly want to take the risk to go into Africa or trying to get reparations from them or the Dutch or Dutch Jews, right? Of course. And of course, since you're so anti-slave, again, the largest group of people who are disproportionately enslaved today are African Americans on behalf and from Islamists and Muslims.
I ain't trying to hear about no average folks that was slave. I ain't trying to hear.
Because you're an ignorant retard and you're fucking stupid.
Hear about we didn't own slaves. We was too poor.
Okay, so just because our skin is white means we benefit in some way, right? Sins of the father bullshit.
So if what you're saying is, if you wasn't too poor, you would have had you a slave.
No. And again, here we go with the gaslighting. Another thing that racial supremacist groups love to do and love to read in and put words in your mouth. No Christian man would ever want to own a slave if you're a decent Christian. Period. But then again, that requires reading a book, education, and being learned on something.
That's basically what you're saying. That land that y'all own, that's ours.
Bullshit, fuck you. Most of that land ownership predates slavery in some cases, but just because our ancestors did something wrong doesn't mean you have right to the blood, sweat, and toil of that group. But then again, this is the same shit that racial extremist groups, uh, some Jews and Israelis do, so they can seize people's shit because they were once victims, right? So you can kind of see again where we're looping back to the similar things that we said in the beginning.
Y'all came over here and took our everything, might as well say. And
Anyways, that is a fucking ignorant piece of shit that again, you know, you could Google search this shit. It's not even required of reading too much books. But then again, why would you want to educate yourself? Um, and why would you want to understand your enemy and have equal leveling? That's why with Christianity, it's such a blessing thing, because no matter who you are, we're all equal at the foot of the cross. No matter who you are, your history doesn't matter because you're born again, baptized, or you know, that sin is back there and it doesn't affect the future. But then again, this guy here probably just again takes marching orders from Black Israelites, the 3%, and it you know, again gives you a mental and essentially a brainwashing reason as to why you can victimize white people, because you're holding on to a past that doesn't really affect the future and doesn't represent all white people. But then again, people like this are seriously flawed, broken people. You have to have sympathy for them. And at the end of the day, with racial supremacists and separatists like this, is you have to pity these retards, because at the end of the day, they'll eat themselves up because they can't see past the victimhood and this tragic past. They're doomed to stay in it, imprisoned in it. And once you can't go past that, then you're essentially stuck there, because there's no introspection, there's no looking at yourself, there's no advancing forward, and there's no progression of any real thought or spirituality. But hey, that's just my opinion. You know, we do live in a free country with freedom of speech, and if you want to be retarded enough to believe that all white people are responsible for the sins of you and your people, you know, have at it. But this is bullshit. Fuck this guy and fuck anyone who thinks like this, period. The only thing I've truly seen that also connects racial separatism is that both groups, whether it's African American or white separatism or extremism, is that both sides cannibalize their own. You will hardly ever find that within these racial separatist groups true unity or true progression or brotherhood among them, because the guys at the top use this ethno state horseshit to embetter themselves. And again, to make more enemies here, it's like with Nick Fuentes, right? Where he can slant and make fun of the white working class and, of course, Southerners. And again, he can line his pockets and espouse all this wonderful shit about white European society and the progression and our history and us as a people, when he hasn't done shit for fucking anybody of his people or his tribe. So if it's the one thing I'm trying to say here is, again, within separatism and racial extremism, is often you will find the common link where they cannibalize their own, and neither of them actually help their own groups of people. And it's a mind virus. And until I see otherwise, I will see both white and black separatism and extremism as the same retarded animal that only sees out for the topper echelon of their own, and they hardly ever venture out and do kind works, not only even for their own. So it's a dog eat dog, rat eat rat, surface level shit. And that's the true barbarity of it. And I know I'm going to get tons of shit for this opinion, but from what I've witnessed and what I've seen, as more times than likely, even among hardcore white separatism and extremism, is very few, if ever, you will see these people actually helping their own ever. And that's the truth of it. And people just use it to exploit not only their own people, but to kind of empower themselves, to give them a special victim status that, again, that they can just bludgeon anyone else who dare has a critical thought or opinion.
Money! We gotta make some money!
The sky